Stop treating your fences like they're just for privacy. It genuinely drives me crazy when people spend hundreds of dollars building a beautiful trellis or arbor and then plant nothing but decorative flowers on it. That is prime real estate going to waste, and your grocery bill is paying the price every single week. Here's the truth mainstream gardening advice conveniently ignores. Flat garden beds are the least efficient way to grow food on the planet. You are limited by square footage, period. The moment your raised bed is full, you're done, no matter how badly you want more. But vines don't play by that rule at all. They climb. They stack their harvest vertically, straight up into the air, in space you'd never even think to use, on fences, on railings, on old chain link nobody wanted to look at anyway, on the ugly blank wall beside your garage. The 9 vines we're covering today aren't just fast growers, and they're not just heavy producers. Every single one of them is either a genuine perennial or an aggressive self-seeder, which means you plant it one time, one single time, and it comes back and feeds you year after year after year, with zero replanting, zero reseeding, and almost zero ongoing effort from you. This is the difference between a garden you have to babysit every spring and a garden that quietly works for you while you sleep, storing sunshine into food you didn't have to lift a finger for. Stick around for the whole list, because I've deliberately ordered these from beginner-friendly all the way to genuinely surprising, and the later ones are the ones nobody in your neighborhood is growing yet. Let's get into it. 1. Hardy kiwi. If you've ever assumed that fuzzy brown grocery store kiwi is the only kind of kiwi that exists, you are about to have your entire world turned upside down. Actinidia arguta, commonly called hardy kiwi or kiwi berry, produces fruit that looks like a shrunken grape and tastes like a tropical explosion of kiwi, melon, and citrus all at once. But here's the part that will genuinely shock you. Unlike its fuzzy cousin, this vine's fruit is completely smooth-skinned and completely edible, skin and all. No peeling required, no knife needed, just pop it straight into your mouth like a grape. And it is brutally cold-hardy, surviving winters down to USDA Zone 4, meaning it shrugs off temperatures that would kill a fig tree without blinking. You'll need both a male and a female plant to get fruit, so buy them as a pair from any nursery that sells them, and give the vine 2 to 3 years to settle its roots in before it starts producing seriously. But once it's established, brace yourself, because a single mature vine can pump out over 100 pounds of fruit in one single season. Think about that math for a second. Grocery store kiwi berries, when you can even find them, sell for absurd prices per tiny container, and you're about to grow 100 pounds of them off one plant that requires almost no spraying, no fungicide, and almost no babying whatsoever. It aggressively climbs 15 to 20 feet in a good season once it's happy, so give it a sturdy arbor or a genuinely strong fence line, not a flimsy trellis that will buckle and collapse under the sheer weight of your own success. On top of all that, hardy kiwi vines are practically shrugged off by deer and most common garden pests, which is a genuine rarity for a fruiting plant this productive, and the vine itself, with its dense heart-shaped foliage, doubles as a gorgeous privacy screen while it's busy quietly loading itself with fruit behind the scenes. Comment your state below, because your zone genuinely changes which of these 9 vines will thrive fastest for you, and I'll be calling out the zones as we go, so keep an eye out for yours. 2. Concord grape. Let's be honest, most people think grapevines are complicated, finicky, wine country plants that require a decade of expertise and a French accent to grow correctly. That is a myth, and it's the exact thing keeping you from one of the most generous perennial food plants that exists anywhere. The Concord grape, native to North America, is shockingly low maintenance once it's rooted in. It tolerates poor rocky soil, laughs off summer drought once established, and comes back reliably every single spring from Zone 4 all the way through Zone 8, which covers the vast majority of this entire country. Plant a single bare root vine along a fence line. Give it something sturdy to grab onto. Wire, lattice, an old chain link fence, or a purpose-built arbor. And by year 3, you are looking at 15 to 20 pounds of fruit clusters per plant. And that number only climbs higher as the vine matures over the following decades. Yes, decades. A well-maintained grapevine can keep producing reliably for 50 years or more, which means the vine you plant this spring could still be feeding your grandchildren. You eat the grapes fresh off the vine, you turn them into jelly and jam, you juice them into homemade grape juice, you dry them into raisins, and if you're feeling ambitious, you make your own wine. The leaves themselves are edible too, wrapped around seasoned rice, for a homegrown version of stuffed grape leaves that costs you nothing but a few minutes with kitchen shears in early summer. One serious pruning session in late winter, cutting the vine back hard, is basically the entire annual maintenance requirement. That's it. That's the whole job for 50 years of fruit. And unlike delicate European wine grapes that demand constant spraying and fussing over humidity and mildew, Concord grapes were essentially born wild in American hedgerows, which means they carry a natural resistance to a lot of the fungal headaches that make other fruit crops so frustrating to grow. 3. Winged bean. This is easily the most underrated vegetable on planet Earth, and I genuinely mean that with my whole chest. Winged bean, sometimes nicknamed the supermarket in a pod because of how absurdly complete a food source it is, produces edible pods, edible leaves, edible flowers, edible seeds, and a starchy, protein-rich tuberous root, all from one single climbing vine. That's 5 separate harvests from one plant, something almost nothing else in the entire vegetable kingdom can claim. Native to tropical Southeast Asia and Papua New Guinea, this vine thrives in heat and humidity that would wilt most other beans into a sad, wrinkled submission, and it climbs 10 to 15 feet on a simple trellis in as little as 70 to 100 days from seed. The square, ruffled pods taste like a cross between a green bean and asparagus when cooked young, the leaves cook down like spinach in a hot pan, the sky blue flowers are genuinely edible straight off the vine and gorgeous tossed into a salad, and the mature seeds contain nearly as much protein per gram as soybeans, making this one plant a legitimate protein source for an entire household. In frost-free zones, 9 and warmer, it behaves as a true perennial, sending up vigorous new growth from the established root year after year without any input from you. In colder climates, simply dig up and store the tuber over winter, like you would a dahlia bulb, then replant it in spring, and you get a head start that puts container-grown seedlings to absolute shame. If your goal is maximum nutrition per square foot of trellis space, nothing on this entire list beats the winged bean. Full stop. Agricultural researchers in the tropics have actually nicknamed it a one-species vegetable garden, because a family with a single healthy fence length of this vine can genuinely reduce their weekly grocery run without touching a single other crop. 4. Yard-long bean. Also called the asparagus bean, this climbing legume solves a problem every single vegetable gardener has quietly complained about at some point. Bush beans that completely stop producing the second real summer heat kicks in. Yard-long beans do the exact opposite. They practically worship the heat. While your neighbor's green beans are shriveling and giving up in a brutal July heat wave, yard-long beans are aggressively climbing 8 to 12 feet up, any support you give them, and pumping out pods that genuinely grow to be 1.5 feet long, sometimes even longer, hence the name. They mature fast, around 60 days from seed to first harvest, and once they start producing, they do not stop. The more you pick, the more the vine produces in response, in many cases yielding continuously for 2 to 3 straight months off a single planting, with almost no lull. And here is the part that makes this vine worth growing forever, with essentially zero recurring cost. Let a few pods mature fully on the vine at the very end of the season. Let them dry out completely and rattle inside their shells, and you've got a free seed packet for next year, indefinitely, at zero cost, no trip to the garden center required. One $5 packet of seeds, planted just once, can genuinely supply your family with beans for the rest of your gardening life if you simply save seed every autumn. That's not a gimmick or a hack. That's just how self-pollinating legumes naturally work, and almost nobody actually takes advantage of it. Store the dried seeds in a simple paper envelope in a cool, dark drawer, and they'll stay viable for years, meaning one good harvest season can genuinely stock you up for a small backup supply as well. 5. Luffa. Stop buying luffa sponges at the store. I mean that literally, right now. That fibrous sponge sitting in your shower this very second, the one you paid $6 or $7 for, grew on a vine, and you can grow an entire season's supply of them in your own backyard for the price of one single seed packet. Luffa is a fast, aggressive climbing gourd that can cover 20 to wild, including one plant most people consider public enemy number one that is secretly one of the most generous food sources in all of North America. 6. Malabar gourd, also known as chilacayote or fig leaf squash. This is the vine that mainstream gardening advice completely forgot about, and honestly, it's a shame, because it might be the single most productive squash relative on this entire list. Unlike ordinary summer squash that collapses the moment squash vine borers show up and hollow out the stem, chilacayote is remarkably pest and disease resistant, largely because it originates from cooler highland regions of Central and South America, where those particular pests never evolved to target it. The vine explodes outward 20 feet or more in a single season, climbing fences and trellises with thick, muscular stems that most gardeners have never seen on a squash plant before, and produces enormous striped fruits that can weigh 15 to 20 pounds each, packed with mild, faintly sweet flesh that works beautifully in everything from savory soups to the traditional Mexican candied treat called cabello de ángel, angel hair squash, sold in markets across the country. Here's the detail that separates this vine from every other squash you've ever grown in your life. Its root system develops into a massive, water-storing taproot that allows the plant to survive drought conditions that would kill other cucurbits outright within days. And in mild winter climates, zone 7 and warmer, that root can survive underground through the cold months and resprout the following spring completely on its own, without you planting a single new seed. Save seed from your biggest fruit each fall, and you've got a permanent, self-sustaining source of one of the most drought-tolerant winter squashes on the entire planet. The fruits themselves also store remarkably well, often lasting 6 months or longer in a cool, dry pantry without any special treatment, which quietly turns one autumn harvest into a genuine winter-long pantry staple. 7. Kudzu. Now stay with me on this one, because I already know exactly what you've heard. Kudzu has a reputation as the vine that ate the American South, and in the wild, left uncontained, that reputation is completely and totally earned. It is genuinely invasive, and I am absolutely not telling you to plant it loosely in your yard and simply walk away. But here is the fact almost nobody actually knows. In its native China and Japan, kudzu has been deliberately cultivated as a serious food crop for over 2,000 years, and every single part of the plant is edible. The young leaves cook down beautifully like spinach in a hot pan. The purple, grape-scented flowers make a genuinely delicious homemade jelly and can even be battered and fried as a delicate seasonal snack. And underground, kudzu builds an absolutely massive starchy taproot. Some documented wild roots have weighed over 200 pounds. That gets ground into a fine, prized starch used in traditional Japanese cooking and herbal medicine for centuries. If you want to grow it responsibly here at home, the move is strict, non-negotiable containment, a large buried container with no drainage gaps for runners to escape, a raised bed lined with a hard root barrier, or a spot completely surrounded by mowed lawn or pavement that physically stops the aggressive runners from ever reaching wild spaces or a forest edge. Contained properly that way, you get a genuinely perennial, essentially indestructible, drought-proof source of greens, edible flowers, and a starchy root harvest, hardy from zone 5 through 10, that will realistically outlive you, your children, and possibly your house. Just never, under any circumstances whatsoever, let it touch open ground anywhere near a forest edge or a neighbor's untended lot. Respect it, contain it completely, and it becomes one of the single most resilient food plants you will ever grow in your life. A plant that will still be there, green and thriving, during a drought summer that wipes out half of everything else in your garden. 8. Climbing nasturtium. If you think of nasturtiums as nothing more than a cheerful little flower spilling out of a hanging basket on someone's porch, you are drastically underestimating this plant. The climbing varieties, and yes, nasturtiums absolutely do climb when you give them a trellis or netting to grab onto, can reach 8 to 10 feet in a single season, and the entire plant, leaves, flowers, and seed pods is completely edible with a peppery, mustardy bite similar to watercress or arugula. The round, umbrella-shaped leaves make a stunning, spicy addition to any salad. The vivid orange and red flowers aren't just a garnish for Instagram photos. They're genuinely delicious, and they make any home-cooked dish look like it came out of a professional restaurant kitchen for free. But here's the harvest almost nobody ever talks about. The plump green seed pods that form after the flowers fade can be pickled in vinegar and brine, and the result is a shockingly convincing homemade substitute for capers, at a fraction of the cost of the imported jarred kind sitting on the grocery store shelf. Nasturtiums germinate directly from seed in about a week, flower within roughly 2 months, and here's the best part for anyone chasing a truly permanent, zero-cost food source. They self-seed with wild, joyful enthusiasm. Let a handful of pods drop and dry naturally at the end of the season, and next spring you will find volunteer plants popping up along that exact same fence line without you lifting a single finger. Buy one $3 seed packet, one single time, and if you simply let it seed itself even occasionally, you may genuinely never need to buy nasturtium seeds again for the rest of your life. As a bonus, the strong peppery scent actively repels aphids and squash bugs from nearby crops, so this climbing flower is quietly doing pest control for the rest of your garden while it feeds you. 9. Dragon fruit. This is the showstopper, the vine that will make your neighbors slow their car down in the middle of the street. Dragon fruit, also called pitaya, is technically a climbing cactus, native to Central America, and it produces some of the most visually spectacular blooms in the entire plant kingdom. Enormous white flowers the size of dinner plates that open only at night and are completely gone by morning, followed by brilliant pink or yellow fruit packed with sweet, mildly tropical flesh speckled throughout with tiny, crunchy black seeds. Here is what genuinely shocks people the first time they hear it. This is a real, long-term perennial. A single well-established plant, trained up a sturdy post or arbor, can keep producing reliably for 20 years or more, and mature plants regularly push out 20 to 100 fruits per season, depending on the variety and how well it's cared for. Fruit that sells for $4 to $8 a piece at specialty grocery stores, if you can even find it in stock at all. It thrives outdoors year-round, in zones 10 and 11, without any protection. But don't let a colder zone stop you from trying. Gardeners from zone 6 upward grow it successfully in large containers, keeping it outside all summer, soaking up sun, and moving it indoors, near a bright window, through the cold winter months. It takes 2 to 3 years to reach fruiting maturity, and it does need a second, genetically different plant nearby, or hand pollination done at night with a small paintbrush, since its natural pollinators are nocturnal moths and bats that most backyards simply don't have visiting them. But once it settles in and matures, you are looking at 2 decades or more of exotic, farmers market-priced fruit from a plant that essentially asks for a sunny spot, an occasional deep watering, and pretty much nothing else from you ever again. And because a single cutting from an established plant will happily root and grow into an entirely new vine, one dragon fruit purchase can genuinely multiply into an entire row of arbors over just a few years, all completely free. Now zoom all the way out and look at what you actually have sitting in front of you. 9 vines. 9 plants you install one single time, and instead of resetting your entire garden from bare soil every single spring, spending money over and over on new seedlings, new soil amendments, and new labor year after year, you are building a permanent vertical food system that gets more productive with every single season it stays alive. That's the entire philosophy behind this list, and honestly the philosophy behind smart gardening in general. A traditional vegetable bed asks something from you constantly, every spring, forever. A well-chosen perennial vine asks for almost nothing after that first year, and it simply keeps giving, generously, whether you're paying attention to it or not. Pick one bare fence, one blank wall, one railing you've been quietly ignoring for years, and put one single vine from this list there this season. That is genuinely all it takes to start something that outlasts most of the decisions you'll make this year. None of these 9 require a greenhouse, a huge budget, or a green thumb passed down through generations. They just require one afternoon of digging a hole and then patience while nature does the actual work for you. I hope you found at least one vine on this list worth planting in your own yard, and I will see you in the very next video. Before you go, comment your state down in the comments below, because if you ignore your USDA zone, You can very easily pick the wrong vine for your climate from the very start, and I want to make absolutely sure you get this